The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico wins it.
Some big-time games and shots. How about this? Where have you been? MC knocking him down twice. Looking top and keeping it alive. House from knee. Got it. This kid is amazing. This is what got them in trouble. That ball screen giving up the mid-range. Look at this foul. House again. It's topping. Fifth assist.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air, but New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State, and the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
Welcome to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. My name is Ryan Tamori. Hope everybody is doing well. We're going to get into last night's upset win, Boise State 86, number 19 UNM 78. Let me introduce the panel or the gang as I always do. Eric, I've hit record and I'm not printing anything, right?
Can't hear anything.
Okay, perfect. Well, my business partner in this endeavor, Mr. Eric Malton. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm good. Good to be joining you guys again. Lobos had their party crashed last night, but I don't think it's as bad of a loss as a lot of people are making it out to be. They just moved down one spot in the net ranking, but we'll jump right into it.
You can follow him at NM Sportscapper on the old X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. His name is Mr. Jacob Neff. How are you doing, man?
Good. Shaved. Fresh new look for since we had been on a win streak. I decided, hey, let's cut it off until they lose again. So
Did you lose a bet?
no bet lost. Yeah, actually I did lose a bet last night. Yeah. Thank you, UNM. But
yeah, I had the guts to take him last night. All the way from the Bay, Mr. Richard Thompson, two-time state offensive lineman, all-state offensive lineman. Let me say that correctly. And he played some basketball under Damian Segura. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, guys. Sorry, my AOL didn't pay the bill this month, and I just got it taken care of. I'm happy to join you guys and break down this exciting game we had to view last night. So thanks for having me back.
Need to spend more time on your OnlyFans. All right, he is a ProView broadcaster, Mr. Nick Nunez. Hey, man, once again, glad you're joining us.
Ryan, thanks for having me on, man. Excited to talk with you guys. Sad about the loss, but we'll get into it either way.
What I want to get into really quickly, the Lady Lobos, the UNM women's basketball team, they have won 5 in a row. So they are on their own 5-game winning streak. And they beat San Jose State.
Big one Saturday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, UNLV on Saturday. They beat San Jose State on at a noon tip-off Pacific time, or actually I think 11 a.m. Pacific time. It was school day. They beat San Jose State 65-54. They are 16-6 overall and 7-2 in the Mountain West. I think they stand alone outright in second place. So kudos to the UNM women's basketball team. I wanted to get into this tonight. NMSU player punched a Liberty player in the face. Here's the sound bites from ESPNU. And the guys, the Liberty players, I know you can't see it. The Liberty players on that would courtesy of ESPNU. The Liberty player is on the floor, like he was knocked out, like Joe Frazier. It looked pretty good. In our own world here in Albuquerque, in our own world in UNM men's basketball. Hey, you know what I forgot to do? Because everything's been crazy lately. Hey, our sponsors. Looking for a place to watch the Lobos when they are on the road? Head over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room, only a few minutes away from Santa Ana Star Casino. Catch the Lobos. Catch all the college basketball action now. I'm sure they have the NBA and NHL on now. NHL All-Star break. No Mr. Ice Jacob. We are ice people. Stop by for food, drinks, and football, turquoise, and basketball. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves local brews on tap. Find them on Facebook. Find them on Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room. And Abrazo Homes is Lobo owned and Lobo operated and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department and its student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo Homes build momentum by contributing to our friends over at 505 Sports Venture Foundation, Mr. Kurt Roth, Drew Herrig, or the UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, you become a part of the Abrazo Familia, looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico. Find them at abrazohomes.com. Nothing like going into ads telling you to go watch the Lobos after an NMSU player gets in trouble again. Hey, I will be honest. I didn't go to the game last night. I busy with my full-time job, very tired. I called it and then rolled over at halftime and fell asleep. So I rewatched part of the game today, caught up with it. Donovan Dent looked great. I'm going to rely on you guys heavily at this podcast, but Boise State comes in. They retain sole second place in the Mountain West Conference at 6-2. UNM drops to 6-3 and 18-4 overall. Boise wins 86-78. I would say the story of the game, and you guys can stop me, is Max Rice, 12 of 20 field goal, 50% from 3, 7 of 14, 35 points, 5 rebounds, and he had 1 assist. So talk about selfish player. That's a bad joke. He is phenomenally, he's predominantly a pretty good shooter. He's had a rough senior year. And he let the Lobos have it. Last year, he had 30 points in the pit, I think, or in one of the games.
Mhm.
And this year he has 35, which is a career high. And kind of, shot the Lobos out of the pit. And you know what I thought of when I saw that stat line? Is Kurt Roth had said, there's always a player that comes here that you would least expect it, even though Max Rice is a pretty good shooter. And they have a phenomenal game. And he did that last night. I would say I'm sort of shocked. I've kind of switched the gear on how I feel this team has been playing. And then I will be the Debbie Downer because this schedule does not get any easier. And I think that there is not a real possibility, but a slim possibility that this team could play their way out of not only the NCAA tournament, but a decent seed in Vegas, because you have to go to Nevada, you have to go to Boise State, you have to go to San Diego State, and you have to go to Utah State. I just, I said on previous podcasts that they would have to win every home game, and they were pretty nearly perfect through all of January, and you get February 1 and they lose. Rick, I'm going to start with you. The transition offense and fast break points, which is what we've seen now. Donovan Dent, I didn't even go into that. He had 31, and he was the reason they were in the game. And I don't know what I'm doing in my notes. 31 points, 12 of 18 from the field, and he only missed 1 free throw. But talk about how this Lobo defense had created offense, and basically it was slowed down for UNM last night by, I think, a great job by Leon Rice, the head coach.
Right, and that defense is something the Lobos rely on heavily this season to create turnovers and chaos and really ignite them on the offensive end and jump out to these big leads. I think we've won by double digits the last 4 or 5 games. And what Coach Leon Rice did on the Boise side is he had their big man Degenhart be the primary ball handler, bringing the ball up the court to try to limit the pressure that our guards could put on their guards, bringing the ball up and limit the number of turnovers. And it did just that. Degenhart isn't the greatest ball handler distributor in the world, but he got the ball up the court most of the time without turning it over, and their plan worked. And what that did is limited the amount of times that we got out in transition, because our number of steals was lower than it had been the previous games. And the times that we did get out in transition or after a made basket where we are just getting out quick, a lot of times the decision making of House was head scratching for me because they had a 3-on-1 fast break, and then they had a 3-on-2 fast break another time. He's pulling up for a three-pointer when they have numbers. And I'm not a coach at a college level, but I've been taught since elementary school, and you do drills. You take it to the middle and you jump stop if you have numbers. You can have a 5-foot shot or dump it off to one of the other guys running the lanes. And I'm all for taking open threes, but there was also another instance where True Washington, they had numbers 3-on-1. He took it out to the wing and shot a three that I don't think was the right time for that. So when the Lobos are not able to score points in the ways that they're normal to and that or normally do in the open court, it just causes some problems because when they're running out of a set offense, outside of the pick and roll game that Dent has with the big men, it's hard to keep everyone involved right now. And when you have your two leaders of House and Mash not making a high percentage of their shots, then that's usually going to lead to a downfall for UNM. And I just thought, when they did have the numbers, their decision making was not the best. And House, a lot of his shots, even in and out of the set offense, were step back 3-pointers or contested at the rim. And when he never makes 2 or 3 shots in the row, it affects the whole energy in the building and in the team, right? And even though Dent picked up the slack in a major way, we were just missing the usual plays that we get on defense. And I think there was also some fouls out of Nelly that were 30, 35 feet away from the hoop that kind of slowed down the pace of the game. So I'll let you other guys hit on it. But I think for me, that was the major, slowdown point for us was no points in transition.
Jacob, I'll go to you. And I think the biggest thing that you pointed out and you noticed was number one, if you had said that Tyson Dagenhart had scored 4 points, you would have said that UNM would have destroyed them. Not only that, they were falling for pump fakes all night. What did UNM do wrong defensively?
Yeah, I mean, that's another good job by Coach Leon Rice there. He had it figured out. He said these guys have been aggressive every time that they're going to the hoop, or whenever someone's taking a shot, they've been blocking everything. So you could tell his clear game plan was use a pump fake, get them off their normal defense. Other people will have to help. They could either kick it out for 3, take it to the basket if nobody helps, and that oftentimes was leaving them scrambling to try and catch up to wherever the gap was on the court for defense of whoever had to help out, or if they just let them go in for a layup. So I think Sam Martin, he's okay at shooting from outside. He's not like anything great, but every time he got the ball from 3, he pump faked and then he drove it into the basket and had a couple dunks and layups. And you can't fall for those pump fakes. I understand falling for a pump fake for somebody like Max Rice last night. Everything he put up was going in. So you could fall for those ones. But the other guys, some of these other guys that they're falling for pump fakes for, that was clearly part of their game plan. And then, Dagenhart was the distributor last night and, the floor general for them. And if you want to put air quotes there, but he's been consistently one of their best players now for, the better part of 2 years. And they rely pretty heavily on his points in the game, his physicality down low. And last night, he didn't have to do anything, which is even more impressive, I think, from Boise's perspective is, they won that game pretty convincingly, and he was pretty much a non-factor for 40 minutes. They went 1 for 8, I think. You don't see him doing that very often. And so if you would have told me, if it was like you, Ryan, where you said you slept, for the second half or through the entire game, and you're like, hey, Dagenhart had 4 points, I would have been like, oh, we won by 15 or 20, right? But that just goes to I think that just goes to show how much more impressive the win is from their team, because other people stepped up when their best player was not called on to be, what he needed to be usually for like the remainder of what he's been doing for the season.
I just had one more thing on
Go ahead, Rick.
Dagenhart and the defense since I was speaking on that, and someone even asked the question in the media to Coach Patino after the game is, did you consider putting someone else on Dagenhart to try to frustrate him bringing it up? And at one time he did put not Mushila, Amzil in, but in my head I was thinking I would like to see Mushila in there, giving him some pressure in the backcourt and giving him full court press to kind of knock them out of rhythm. But I don't think Mushila touched the court. So um, some people were mentioning maybe putting a guard, but I would have rather seen Mushila have a shot at it. And I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, he didn't get any minutes, which blows my mind. Jamal Baker played 13. He hit 1 3, and that was his only shot. JT Toppin, 8 points. Jamal Mashburn and Jalen House, 14 and 12. This, a lot of guys like did we say this on here? The Tom Moser, Coach Tom Moser does Top of the Mountain podcast, and we've had him on that he picked Boise State, and a lot of national guys were high on Boise State. Obviously, San Diego State was still the favorite. I think it was San Diego State, Boise, UNM, which right now is looking to come true. And I don't remember where Utah State was picked, but that's another topic for another time. Eric, I'll go to you. And you were mentioning your thoughts on Dagenhart bringing the ball up and on offense avoided House's on ball pressure. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think one thing that's not being talked enough about was just kind of Leon Rice's adjustments to kind of eliminate that ball pressure, eliminate House kind of causing that. And what that allowed Boise State to do was just kind of control House and the on ball pressure. And I thought they're a really well coached team. And like, let's not forget that they've played a really tough non conference schedule. And they've played some of those bigger, more physical teams in the ACC. They traveled out east, so they're kind of used to that. But they slowed the game down. I thought they were extremely patient on the offensive side, and I think that's kind of a result of what Leon Rice was trying to do, was trying to calm down the chaos. They were really good. I think they kind of exploited a lot of the mismatches. Um, Agbo was a big key factor in this game. I know Max Rice was kind of receiving all the attention because he went off for 35, but Agbo continued to answer, and he's got a size advantage over Dent and was knocking down some key shots there in the game that kept extending the lead. But putting pressure on the UNM, the whole five to guard, and because of Boise State's length, athleticism, they were able to stretch the floor and UNM wasn't really good at being patient on the defensive side and guarding in the half court and got overly aggressive at times and overcommitted some of those passing lanes, overplayed some players, and gave up a ton of backdoor cuts, gave up a ton of layups and some dunks, got blown by a few times. And what that does is when Boise State was spreading the floor, they were forcing UNM bigs to kind of guard out near the 3-point line, which allowed Boise State to get to the rim, which allowed Boise State to take advantage of the offensive rebounds and the glass, which they were able to out rebound UNM by 8 points. So I think it really came down to a personnel issue with Boise State and UNM not matching up in a lot of ways. But ultimately, I thought Boise came in a little bit hungrier. Right? They lost that game they probably shouldn't have at Utah State on that. What was it?
That was in
That
Boise.
5 point. Yeah. So that's kind of what I thought. I thought that they were just, I wouldn't say Patino was out coached, but I just didn't think they had enough answers for some of the things that Boise State was doing. And they're a good team, man. Like they're gonna finish top 3 in the Mountain West, I still believe. And I'm kind of right up there with Moser and kind of picking him at top of the Mountain West.
Nick, I'm going to reference what your dad sent us. That Boise hit some clutch shots right when UNM would they tied the game. I think it's 67, and then they just kept hitting clutch shots. And Eric alluded to it. Some of them deep, mostly obviously Max Rice, and then I always forget his name. Chibuzo
Agbo.
Agbo, yeah. Um, just talk about how you thought. I mean, it felt like, and Jacob alluded to this in a text. Boise State punched, and then UNM punched back. Just your overall thoughts about how hard it is to beat a team that's just not missing.
Yeah, especially at the end of the game. I mean, you hit on it, Ryan. Those shots were just so clutch and so backbreaking. Like you said, it was 67 all, and I think Boise goes on a 7-0 run and just kind of closes the door in the final 5 minutes. Max Rice, we talked about him. He's a guy that's frustrating because that shot, it looks like a set shot, but he gets it off so quick. And then he went 7 of 14 from three. Ogbo was also good from the 3-point line as well. But when they're shooting the ball that well at the end of the game, they just kind of took the energy out of the pit, and the crowd wasn't as much of a factor as it's been, and they really just kind of deflated the energy in the pit.
Eric and I had the pleasure of meeting Max Rice and Tyson Dagenhart in Vegas, and they were both cool guys. Leon Rice was awesome. You can go back and find that on our channel. They were awesome. Kind of down to earth and low key. But I'm not talking trash about Max Rice. Maybe I'm wrong. His shot looks kind of funny to me, but he was good last year. He was phenomenal last night. I give them all the credit in the world. And Rick, you brought up something, I think with about like 6 minutes left in the first half, Boise State switched to a 1-3-1 zone, and it looked like UNM had never seen it before.
Yeah, I think they went to it maybe at the end of the first half, and definitely with about 7 minutes left in the second half, and caused 2 turnovers late in the game that I thought really were difference makers when the game was close. After what Nick was talking about, after Mash hit that 3, they went into zone and caused some weird decisions for us. And I don't know if it was 1-3-1 or 3-2, but where they had is they just had 2 guys sitting on the blocks where our bigs were, and I didn't see anyone coming up to the free throw line to the middle of the zone looking for the ball. And I don't know if I don't know basketball anymore, but usually in a zone, getting the ball to the middle and then having that person turn and face is a good thing. And I didn't see that at all during those few possessions of the zone. And I think they wanted us to shoot those type of shots that we got. Again, with Mash having 6 of 15 from the field and House just not being able to throw the ball in the ocean last night, it doesn't bode very well when you have a guy on the other end that's making everything, right? And I think it's tough when you're Mash or House and you're going up against a guy that's on fire. They want to try to match that, right? And that's just the competitive nature that those guys have. And unfortunately, it wasn't falling last night in any way, but it's not like they didn't have the effort. House still had 7 rebounds, 3 assists, but it just seemed like the big men weren't involved for us in the second half on offense. Toppin even was out there shooting threes, which is uncharacteristic. So, that their defensive strategy, it worked. Once Dent obviously proved what he could do, they tried to pack it in, and we shot some bad shots from the outside in my eyes.
Jacob, I'm going to
Yeah,
go
I
to you.
want to add.
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
I just want to add my 2 cents to that. It was just an adjustment that Leon Rice made that was really good on their part, really kind of luring the Lobos into shooting threes, which is not their game, and they shot 25 of them. And when you shoot 25 and only make, I'm not sure how many they made total, but
7.
man, those just turn into empty possessions, and that's really kind of what jump started Boise State. I think they went on a 14-0 run at one point there in the first half, and the Lobos were really, I think they did bring it back and end up taking the lead early in the second half, but those kind of in-game adjustments and those 3-point shots and just some of the shots that were head scratching for me with Mashburn early in the shot clock, one pass, one dribble, 2 dribble pull up, like work some offense, especially against the zone. The way you beat a zone is kind of moving the ball around the perimeter and finding someone around the elbow. But I don't think they did a really good job of kind of jumping into an offense to combat that zone and looking for Toppin, who has a decent mid-range game, but man, between Toppin and Nelly down low, they had 7 shot attempts total. And to me, that's just not nearly as enough as impactful as they can be, right? Like for them to get that many, um, kind of unacceptable. But um, credit to Boise State for making those calls.
If you would have told me Nelly would have had 4 points, I probably said they would have lost. I mean, I know that he's played better as of late, but he took 2 shots, 1 of 2, and he made 2 free throws. I don't get that. Jacob, you had alluded to the zone too, but you had kind of concluded that won the game for them, and I just wanted your thoughts on that final stretch there. And you said that everyone was shooting jumpers and they had rim protection.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought I mean, at that point it was a tie game with 6 minutes, and what Leon Rice did was he switched to that zone because I think in his huddle he said, let's figure out a way to get these guys to go on a little bit of a drought, even a couple empty possessions, because we're scoring almost every time down. For a while it was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He's thinking, how can we throw something at them to throw them off so we could just get a couple of possessions empty and capitalize on them and get a little bit of separations? Because literally exactly what happened. He made that adjustment. They didn't run any offense when they went to that 1-3-1. And then, just on the offensive side of the ball, it was driving me nuts all night is, the guards kept taking jumpers and 3-pointers, and you're not successful in that because I think Mash and House to combined went for like 8 for 30. And you're watching Donovan Dent take it to the basket at will with pretty much no resistance by anybody. And I mean, thank God for him, because if Donovan didn't go for 31 last night, it was probably a 20-point blowout, which would have been a terrible loss for them. But he kept him in the game and he knew what was working. And, I think you just have to be able to adjust to those things when you're in the flow of the game, and you can see, hey, we've got one guard that's taking it to the basket at will. Maybe House should have did that too, because, most of his shots were contested and jumpers, and he went 7 for 7 from the line, which, if he could have got to the line a couple times, even if they fouled him on those drives to the basket, that maybe would have opened up his stroke or got him a little more confidence. But yeah, I just think that we ultimately settled for too many jumpers and fell into exactly what they wanted us to do, right? Is shoot threes and take outside jumpers, and we played directly into their hand, and we see what happens. You got to be able to enforce your will on the offensive end on what's working. And I was a little disappointed in the amount of touches that the big guys were getting too. I think we've talked about it on prior podcasts. You got to keep those guys involved in the game. And for most of the game, I didn't really see much offensive movement from Nelly or Toppin. And I feel like that's because when you're running up and down the court, continuously, and they're not even looking at you, and the only way you're going to get the ball or put your hands on the ball is by getting a rebound and trying to put it back up, you kind of just lose interest in running up and down the court and not, running any type of offense. So I think those were some of the things that stuck out to me last night.
Nick, I'm going to go to you, unless you had something to say.
No. I mean, I was just going to add to what everyone is saying about the offensive dysfunction. One thing that I thought was really taken out of the game for UNM was the pick and roll. I think we can all agree that in the half court, Dent on the pick and roll, House on the pick and roll, even Mash on the pick and roll, that's how the Lobos generate a lot of offense. We have 3 guards that can make good reads on the screen and roll. We've seen Nelly, we've seen Toppin hit on the roll and get some easy baskets. I think it really just opens things up. And against that zone defense, it's hard to do. Rick, you're right. I don't know if it was a 3-2. I don't know if it was a 1-3-1, but whatever it was, it took away our ability to get the ball inside with the dribble and with the pass. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, Mash, 6 of 15, House, 2 of 15. Dent shot the ball pretty well. He penetrated and got to the rim. But, other than that, there just really was no offensive flow. And, I think Leon Rice did a heck of a job. I think he showed the zone at the right time. He didn't come out in it right away. Nevada seemed to kind of pull it early, and it did give the Lobos fits at the end of the first half against Nevada a little bit, just a little bit, but really the zone. It was a good call by Leon Rice, and the last thing. I mean, this was a winnable game still. It was 67 all, but yeah, no, the zone really did take them out.
I want to make just
Go ahead.
one more point real quick, just to kind of wrap up the offensive or just dysfunction that Nick was saying. It was the Lobos never really got into an offensive rhythm, and we had talked about this topic kind of maybe a few podcasts ago with Jalen House and his foul trouble. And so far up to this point, I think the Lobos have avoided any real problems with him getting into foul trouble, having to go to the bench because they've had like Mashburn or Dent to rely on. But Mashburn wasn't shooting well. House wasn't shooting well. Dent was really the only one that was effective on the offensive side. But when House went out of the game with that cheap third foul, like early in the second half, you could just sense that the game was kind of a little bit being more controlled by Boise State. And with him on the bench, he doesn't do this team any good. And it was a cheap foul. It was 35 feet away from the basket. And this was probably the first game where we really were impacted by him being on the bench or just kind of being out of control and overly aggressive. So just wanted to add that in there a little bit.
Nick, I was going to ask you because your dad had brought it up, and I'm sure he would love talking about the post. And we kind of touched on it. Omar Stanley and his size, it matched up to Toppin's athleticism. And you had already mentioned it that he was a non-factor in the first half, even when he did get limited touches. But just your thoughts on him kind of battling with Stanley.
I thought he kind of looked like a freshman out there. I mean, he's had a phenomenal season, 7-time freshman of the week. You can't say a lot of bad things about JT Toppin, but I thought, yeah, Stanley's an upperclassman. He's a junior. He played at, I think it was St. John's last year. But I thought he matched his physicality and his athleticism. But he never really found the ball. But there was at least one time in the second half where I thought Dent gave him a pass right on the money, and he kind of fumbled it around a little bit. So, he wasn't a non-factor. He got a lot of rebounds in the first half. He was good on the defensive side in the first half. He had some blocks. He definitely was a factor early. But, yeah, I think as the game went on, he became a non-factor, and Omar Stanley matched up pretty well with him.
And I just wanted to point out when Toppin or Nelly went out in the first half and we brought Amzil in, it was just a total field day for their posts down low for about 3 straight possessions with Stanley and then the other gentleman off the bench, Cam Martin. And I don't know why our big guys are falling for those head fakes when those guys are pump faking from the 3-point line and then dribbling it in. But their bench players overall, with Whiting and Martin, really outplayed UNM's bench in my eyes. Washington, I don't think, even had a bucket, and Baker only added a 3.
Eric, I'll go to you. And I know kind of flip-flopping, but you thought that Boise was incredibly patient on offense. And what it sounded like, and when I what I sounded like this morning, then when I rewatched the game or watched the game, at least the second half, and I'm sure so many people were mad that UConn and who was it, Jacob? It was UConn and
for last night, it was
Providence.
UConn Providence.
Providence. Yeah,
Providence.
Providence punched them in the mouth. That halftime came out at like right after 10 o'clock Eastern, so 8 o'clock our time. So you knew that game wasn't starting on time. And I was still awake, and they had said, "Oh, we're pushing it to 8:45." I was like, I didn't have enough time. And you obviously UConn survived because I wouldn't have seen that. But Eric, you had mentioned, I don't know where I was going with that, but Boise was extremely patient on offense, and that you had said, or you had told me this morning, that you had thought that that was one of the best game plans Leon Rice could have, executed.
Well, they were, yeah, extremely patient. And if you noticed, most of their shot attempts came under the 10-second mark in the shot clock. They moved the ball well. They didn't really let the ball pressure affect them. And a lot of that had to do with Degenhart bringing up the ball, almost walking up the ball at some points, but they were able to get the ball in some of their ball handlers' hands, and really just stretching the floor. Because when Nelly was on Degenhart for most of the game, and Nelly's not used to guarding anyone really at the half court line, other than when he's hedging a ball screen or double teaming someone. Um, right when they play that super fast, over aggressive style of play, and Boise State just wasn't going to fall into that style of play. They were going to control the pace. They were going to move the ball the way they wanted to. They were going to go in the post. They were going to try to get in some of these mismatches. And over again, they just kind of overexerted their size. Got Dent in the post with Agbo. Agbo killed them down there. I mean, just overall points in the paint. Boise State had their will at the rim. I think they finished 46 points in the paint. And I think that was just the game plan all along, kind of slow down the Lobos, eliminate some of that craziness, and then just really remove a lot of the pressure. And then you bring down the clock like that and you start knocking down shots the way that they were. It's very disheartening and sucks a lot of energy out of a team that has to guard for the full shot clock, right? Has to guard for the full 30 seconds. Um, it's disheartening and it's discouraging. But I mean, it was just a game plan that they executed, and their offense executed at a high level.
I will go to this because I want to get into this remaining schedule real quick, and then Ken Palm. UNM is still number 20 in the Ken Palm, and I think, Jacob, you had said we were talking today, and you had said they didn't get dinged in the net, and I didn't see it, but they were what, 19? I think they were 20 or Ken Palm yesterday. So for them to stay right there, that's good news for Lobo fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just goes to show you what they think of Boise State, right? I think even though I think they're 50, they were 51 last night in Ken Palm before this, and I'm not quite sure in the net, but I know they were higher in the net than Ken Palm has them. It's just they're non-conference, they're a tougher team. I mean, looking at this, if they didn't blow that game to Utah State, they'd be in first in the Mountain West, right? So you've got to look at them as one of the the contenders in this conference, one of the better teams in this conference. They have a lot of senior leadership, guys that have been to the tournament, have some experience. So this is a team that can't be taken lightly, and I don't think it's as bad of a loss as a lot of people think it is. I'm not sure if it keeps us in the top 25 because they only have one game this week. So they don't even have a chance to go out there and, get a win before the next AP poll comes out. So it could put us like right at the brink of being outside of it. But still, it's not, I don't think it's as bad of a loss as most people are thinking, just because of, in context to where they rank in the net and where Ken Palm has them. There's obviously people giving this team respect.
And I'm just going to ask you the same question. Can you see this schedule wise? At Wyoming next Tuesday, they get UNLV home at Nevada on Tuesday, February 13th. That's a great Valentine's Day gift, isn't it, Lobo fan, to go back to Steve Alford. I'm sure he's irate. Then they're at San Diego State that Friday night. That's an 8 p.m. tip on FS1. They get Colorado State at home, Air Force. I'm going to the Boise game. That's at the beginning of March. And then Fresno, and then they go to Utah State.
Yes, it's a tough end to the schedule. That's for sure. It's not getting any easier. The Lobos have notoriously played close games in Wyoming too, and not a lot of people are talking about Wyoming right now. But they're one of the hotter teams in the conference. They're 5-3. They figured out a way to come back against CSU at home, down 11 with a minute to go. It's not like a big arena or like, a packed arena by any means, but it just feels like every time the Lobos go down there, they get into a dogfight with them, regardless of how good they are, and where they're at in the standings. Right, last year you saw them come in one of the bottom feeders in the conference when it started to unravel for UNM, and I can't remember who missed that game for us, but they killed us. So we have to take this next game super serious, because you lose that game, then you come at home to UNLV, and to be honest with you, you have no idea what you're going to get. From what I've seen watching UNLV this year, you have no idea which team's going to show up. And so if you get the good UNLV that game, it'll be another dogfight in the pit against them. And then you get to the gauntlet, which is, at Nevada, definitely a revenge game. SDSU, another revenge game. And then you get CSU at home where you're going to have to beat them. And then you get, Utah State towards the end to finish out the season. So, yeah, definitely not getting easier for them. And so they're really going to have to bite down on the mouthpiece and figure out how to get through these next couple games.
Eric, I wanted to ask you about the schedule and your thoughts.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get a lot harder. We're going to find out pretty early on these road games. I think the Wyoming game, that's never been an easy place to play and not an easy place to get to. That arena was electric in that CSU game, and I know that's kind of one of their primary rivalry games, or that's what they deem it. But that team's not bad. They got a couple guys that can score. Walters, who is one of their primary players, transfers in this year. He's one of those bigs that can handle the ball. So I know one of the questions on Twitter that a lot of people were talking about is what Boise State did to UNM. Did they provide the rest of the Mountain West with some type of blueprint to beat UNM and that type of style of basketball that they like to play, which is fast paced, really aggressive on defense, and then kind of having a big or having like an oversized player bring down the ball to kind of slow that up. And Walters is one of those guys. So I guess we'll kind of find out if Linder and Wyoming kind of implement that into their system a little bit. But I mean, they've got some guys that can score. They got some guys that played well against Colorado State. You can't take them lightly. So that's just looking at Wyoming for me. But the rest of the conference season, they play some really tough road games. And in order for UNM to get into the tournament as an at-large, they're going to have to win on the road, because if they don't, I don't think they get in as an at-large.
I think they can play their way out, and I know people don't want to hear that, but I thought that I know it's always must win, must have games. Like, of course, you want to win every game, but I think that that last night, Wednesday night, February 1st, might come back and haunt them. And we might be having a different conversation in a week or two. I don't know. I don't think they stay in the top 25. Rick, I was going to ask you something and I lost my train of thought. I don't want to keep going on the same topic, but you've watched more Mountain West Conference basketball this year, and I just wanted to get your take. I mean, you see that schedule, you hear that schedule, and you and Nick, everybody here has played college, except for me, has played high school basketball. But how do you maintain? I guess how do you maintain your focus?
Well, I think they were probably still coming down from a little bit of high of just totally smashing Nevada a few days ago. And, I think the Lobos still obviously have a game that can translate to the road. Their toughest games obviously lie ahead. But when you see Dent have that type of game and know what he can provide when those other guys are down, I'm still not down on them moving forward. And I just kind of want to just hit on how exciting Mountain West basketball has been this year. I've never followed it obviously as closely since I've joined this podcast, and just seeing that battle of contrasting styles last night between Rice and Dent, right? They're comparing Dent to Kyrie Irving, and Max Rice on the other end looks like your uncle that could be shooting in the backyard, making bank shots, spreading his legs with the amount of pump fakes he was doing. So I'm not saying it wasn't effective or didn't kill the Lobos, but I'm just saying the two contrasting styles were so fun to watch, and just seeing Rice come off those ball screens time and time again, and then seeing Dent with the layup package, as the announcer kept calling it. It was just a joy to watch, and I'm just happy to be following this league so closely and to see how it ends up here down the stretch.
Last night, in the Mountain West, I didn't see a whole lot of action, but you know what, Nick, I'll go to you. You, kind of the same question, just the grueling. You look at this schedule, and I don't like to do this anymore on this podcast, but you see this schedule as a Lobo fan. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was kind of looking ahead when we were on this 5-game winning streak. I'm like, we're going to see some adversity, obviously, at some point in the season. I think it was a surprise to everyone that we saw it last night in the pit coming off a 5-game winning streak. But this is going to be adversity on the road. And, they're going to go into some hostile environments. I mean, Colorado State was semi-hostile opening conference, but Viejas Arena, Boise State, Utah State, I mean, they're going to have to find a way to turn the corner. But I think, it's an opportunity for them to grow. Coach Pitino is going to have to make some adjustments down the road. I mean, teams are going to try to find a way to slow the ball down. And so, it's going to be interesting, but we're going to hopefully see them turn the corner, as conference starts or as they go on the road during the stretch.
Right, obviously that. I was trying to do a quick recap. There was only the one game on Wednesday night, so it was a standalone game for Boise and UNM. We didn't talk about this because Colorado State beat San Diego State 79-71, and Utah State got a win with San Jose State. Wyoming beat Air Force on the road, and then UNLV beat Fresno State. So there's only one game tomorrow night in the Mountain West, or if you're listening this tonight, February 2nd, and San Jose State, who, bless them, has played very hard. And Tim Miles is a good coach. I think he lost a lot from last year, and obviously to replace Amari Moore. They're in Reno tomorrow night. I don't know. I'm sure Alfred ripped probably into everybody on the team. Oh, I'm glad you texted me, Jacob. You said that UNM was going to have to force, and I didn't get the soundbite up, that UNM was going to have to force Max Wright to shoot if they wanted any chance of winning. And he shot the ball. So you were like, hey, I got that wrong. And he texted me, you're like, hey man, I got that wrong. And that's like the first thing I've been wrong on. And I was like, trust me, it happens regardless. If you're picking, if you're doing this, like I've done it for a little bit longer. I even got, expletive thrown at me when I was in college, but you said that and you were incorrect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me eat my big plate of crow real quick and put some hot sauce on it because it's going to be a big one. I mean, when I look at numbers, I do a lot of handicapping, betting, stuff like that, and most of the time, I'm a big number cruncher guy. And when you looked at what Max Rice was doing throughout the season, he really had only had like 2 or 3 good games shooting. I mean, this guy's shot 12% from 3 over the last couple, in 2 games ago. So his best game up to last night in his past 6 games was 37% from 3. And then he comes in last night and, I mean, the basket looked like, he could have threw it through my house. It was just like the guy couldn't miss last night. But, I mean, once he came out and you saw him taking those shots and making those threes, right, you have to make that adjustment. That at first I would have, if it was me, I would have gave him a couple look, not like wide open looks, but I would have, give him a little space to see if he's on. And last night he was. So then you have to make that adjustment, right? And I don't know if we did that, and that was part of his plan. He had confidence in him shooting. That's back-to-back years that Max Rice has come in here and posted his career high. I mean, hats off to him. Sometimes you just have to tip your cap because somebody came out and had a career night against you. You know what I mean? But for it to happen back-to-back years, I wouldn't have expected that. But I mean, I have nothing else to say besides the fact that he played amazing. And sometimes you just have to tip your hat to a player and say, you got the best of us that night.
I wanted to go before we do Snake of the Week. So if you guys can think of that, any final thoughts? Because I kind of was high on Boise State and then was like, well, they lost to Utah State and then they come back in here. And I thought, well, these guys ain't so fucking bad. I didn't think they were that bad in what I watched. Does anybody have any final thoughts on the game?
Just one thing I heard is on BJ Rain's podcast, Big Bronco Nation or whatever it's called, Blue
Bronco Nation News.
That I like the show, but I couldn't remember the name. That was
OJ's
the biggest
White Bronco News.
The highest ranked team that Boise has beat on the road in their history since they beat Creighton maybe 8 or 10 years ago. I'm sure Jacob knows, but so just hats off to Boise. I saw they had a lot of fans there, and I think we did kind of probably underestimate them, and what Mr. Rice could do. I was definitely wrong on him as well, Jacob. So don't feel bad. I think most media was giving him a hard time. So hats off to him to coming through here in the pit again. And if he's cold again, maybe he just needs to come to the pit and warm up.
That's pretty good. My snake of the week, or snake of the game, excuse me. And I did see Snake and Leon Rice hugging prior to the game. And I think BJ Rains actually tweeted it out. So I think that'll be actually my snake of the week, because I have nothing good to take away from this, or KFC, Rick KFC offering smashed potato bowls, which just look like just previously what they've done. I watch way too much college, but I watch way too much sports on TV, and those just cracked me up today. But I will keep it to UNM athletics, and it's Snake and Leon Rice. Eric was there, man. Leon Rice. I know I'm saying it. Leon Rice was awesome to talk to. So it will be Leon Rice and Snake hugging in the parking lot at the pit. Nick, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but your snake of the game, snake of the week.
Hard to take a snake of the game, Ryan. It'd have to be Donovan Dent, I guess, just because of the way that he penetrated. One guy I wanted to give a shout out to for my snake of the game, snake of the week, though, would be Sebastian Forsling. I listened to him on Hunter Green and Robert Portnoy's post-game radio show, and they were just kind of asking him about how the season was going. And he's just a guy that's contributing in practice, playing his role, playing hard. And I think guys like that are going to be important in practice going forward this season. So Sebastian Forsling, snake of the week.
Let me get this straight. Sebastian Forsling didn't play a minute, and he did the post-game show.
That is correct. I asked the same question, but no, it was good hearing him talk.
Well, that's awesome. If I was, I'm going to plead the fifth, because I would have screamed bloody murder if I had to write a story last night and they brought him to the podium. Eric, I'm going to go to you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to go with anyone else but Donovan Dent and his outlandish game last night. He was getting to the rim.
You can't pick a fast food commercial?
Gosh, no, unfortunately I can't, no. But yeah, Double D, Donnie, my snake of the week.
Jacob, I'm going to you. Your snake of the game, snake of the week. Well, this week it's technically snake of the week.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I have to go with Dent too, right? It was like BK for him. He could have it his way all night, dude, at the rim. So, I don't think you could go anything but him if we're looking at it from a Lobo side of the house. It has to be Donovan Dent. You could give a shout out to Toppin and having 15 rebounds again, even though he was limited on the offensive end. But yeah, it'd have to be Dent for me.
And Rick, I'm heading over to you.
I'm going to the men's basketball team managers. They have their own Twitter page, and they've been putting up some good footage of them balling out versus other teams' managers. I want to see some video of the games. I'm jealous that we don't get to see it, and keep it going, guys and girls.
That might be the cue to get Mike. And I ran into Pat Baca with Daniel Ferris before watching the NFC title game. That might be the cue to get Mike and Pat Baca on the podcast. And I've been effering Daniel Ferris, but I don't want to harass him all the time, even though we had a couple classes together in college. And even though I was the enemy working at the paper. UNM plays Wyoming on Tuesday. And, Eric, I was going to throw it to you. Did you want to mention Affordable Solar?
Yeah, they're continuing to do their promo with us that we announced earlier this week, where they're rewarding fans to 2 tickets to an upcoming game. And I think we're still trying to identify the game, but I think that game's probably going to be the CSU Colorado State game. So 2 tickets to fans that want to visit their website. We'll go ahead and post some links down in the comments, or we'll kind of share them on Twitter, Facebook, social media. But basically you go to their website, fill out the form, mention hashtag the Pit Press in the comment section. And then what that do, we'll queue up one of their sales reps to reach out to those fans, schedule a consultation for at-home solar. I don't think it takes a whole lot of extra work, just to kind of compare, contrast your electric bill and see how much you can save with solar energy. So we've been working with them and trying to promote them a little bit. But free tickets to a home Lobo game this season, you can't beat that.
Right when you said 2 tickets, I can't. I'm not going to sleep tonight because I'm just going to have Eddie money in my head. Anyway, man, I thank God I didn't become a stand-up comedian. UNM plays on Tuesday. I believe it's on the Mountain West Network at Wyoming. I don't see it. I'd have to double check, but I don't see a station for it. So 6:30. Hey, it's not 8:30 or 7 o'clock. It's 6:30. God bless it. And then they get UNLV Saturday at 6, and then Tuesday, the night before Valentine's Day, that Nevada game is at 9 o'clock our time on CBS Sports Network. So fantastic. For all of us here, Eric Malton, Jacob Neff, Nick Nunez, Nick, always, I'm glad you joined us tonight. Richard Thompson, check out our website, thepitpressnm.com. All of our podcasts are on there. Trying to do more writing. I haven't had time. Check us out on Instagram at the Pit Press NM. Go to the artist formerly known as Twitter on X at the Pit Press NM. We're also on Facebook. And click like and subscribe, even if you like mid-major basketball and you happen to find us. Give us a click subscribe, and give us a like as I bash into my mic. I'm glad we got together and did this tonight, guys. Good talking to you. Try to figure out to do something before Wyoming. Maybe we can get somebody on, but we'll talk to you prior to that game and probably go live. And Eric is, yes, Eric.
Yeah, just want to shout out to Nick and Ed Nunez
Yes.
on their high school show. We're trying to push that out a little bit more too, and I think they're trying to get more regular on the podcast. So I think maybe once a week, if not a little bit more. But they have a few episodes out now of local high school basketball and trying to spread coverage throughout the whole state. So be on the lookout for that, and we'll be sharing everything on the New Mexico Alumni Media Network.
I appreciate that, Eric. Thank you for doing that. As always, you guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the flip side.